Now let's quickly go into our panel discussion, the last one of the day. The topic of the discussion is alternative and unconventional approaches in the food and beverage industry. And let's get a clearer look at this with our panel of experts. Please help me welcome Wes Control, the CEO and co-founder of Sunnyside Supply Company. He's going to be our moderator. So come on up, Wes, and welcome him. Joining him is going to be Dr. Ram P. Ramchana, as well as Dr. Sadhana Ramchana and Ethan Dillon. Welcome them all to the stage.
They weren't kidding. Those lights are.
Okay, hello everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you. Thank you for sticking around. My name is Wes Cantrell. She introduced me as the CEO of Sunnyside Supply Co. We make hemp-based protein. That's the nature of the game here. And we also have a couple of direct-to-consumer brands that we do as well. So we mess around with some CBD, and we also make hemp-based cosmetics. And so if we want to go down the line and kind of explain, Ethan, if you want to talk about what you do.
So my name's Ethan Dillon. Me and him are from the same company, actually. We co-founded together along with our friend Kyle, who is right there. But I am the current head of sales, so I have been, for the past 2 years, essentially just been selling it, networking with other professionals in the industry, getting our name brand out there.
And Dr. Ram?
Hi, I'm Dr. Ram Ramcharan. I'm the CEO of Fat Dog Spirits. We created a brand called Nirvana Spirits. It's the first infused gin in the United States and the third infused vodka. We also co-founded with my wife a company called Gold Star Innovators, which was the stem, which came about after the technology that we created from Nirvana Spirits.
And Dr. Sadhana?
Thank you. My name is Sadhana Ramcharan. I'm a physician as well as chairwoman of Gold Star Innovators, which is our newest company, and it has a lot to do with therapeutic benefits that we have that we get from CBD for our patients. We also have non-alcoholic cocktails, which are incorporated with CBD, and energy shots, which have CBD in them.
Great. So I think the topic that we have is unconventional approaches to the food and beverage industry. But as you might have picked up, really what links us all up here is the hemp plant. So I thought that it'd be a little bit more fun, instead of talking about unconventional approaches, which we all have, it'd be a little bit more fun to kind of introduce everybody to the hemp plant in more of an in-depth way, and sort of demystify it a little bit. I feel like there's a lot of stigma and a lot of miseducation that revolves around it, because it is a food crop, and it is also a medicine. So there's a lot of different things that we do, and because we're on the food side, we can go ahead and talk about that a little bit. But I would, the Ramcharans are absolute experts in CBD, so I would like to hear a little bit more about what you guys do, and if you could kind of demystify CBD a little bit.
You want to talk about that? All right. So one of the key components with the cannabis sativa plant is that it's got a lot of medicinal properties, but it's also very healthy for you. What Wes was talking about, one of the things that we're actually going to work together is they're creating hemp protein. What's special about that particular plant is we know whey protein and meat proteins are significant to the body. But what most people don't understand, protein that derived from hemp is 2 to 2.5 times more effective than those other particular proteins. So when we we were seeking to create a new product, we came up with an extraction process under our Nirvana brand using the hemp plant. And what was wonderful about that particular product is that we put it in alcohol. And, it was crazy because we made the extraction from a full-blown cannabis sativa and THC version of the plant. But what we eventually came up with was a legal product that is in the market in 14 states. And because of the proteins that's attached to those, the cannabinoids and from the hemp plant, it changes the dynamics and complexity and the softness of the alcohol. So there's a smoother approach to it, and it actually reduces significantly the burn. So from an alternative component, and we're talking about utilizing as a food source, is that hemp, if it's utilized and curated properly and extracted properly, could change the whole dynamics of the food industry from a full-blown cannabinoid, THC, or just a hemp product itself that's legal in the market. What we're attempting to do was to create extension products with our technology that we created for the absorption. And I'll have the doctor here talk about the blood-brain barrier and why it becomes significant, because just taking hemp, putting it in food, and trying to drink it or ingest it as a leaf or whatnot, it doesn't necessarily work. So it has to be prepared properly, and it has to be administered in a manner that works really well. What we're trying to do in our business is to focus on products that taste good, smell good, and at the end of the day creates an efficacy for what the individuals are trying to accomplish. The last thing you need in the CBD world or the hemp is another snake oil salesman. We're not attempting to do that in any way, shape, or form. We've got scientists behind our name. We've got MDs and PhDs. So we're focusing on making sure that whatever we produce have an efficacy and has a purpose in the market space. But I'll turn it over to the wife to talk about the efficacy of the plant.
So I've been practicing medicine for the last 26 years, and once medical marijuana got legalized in the state of Florida, I started recommending that to several of my patients because it's a very natural way of treating patients for several different disease states, and anywhere from anxiety, pain, ALS, and several neuropathic pain syndromes and post-traumatic stress disorders. And definitely it, with this opioid epidemic that we've had and the accidental overdoses that we've had with the opioids that was being prescribed, I still think that medical marijuana is a very safe alternative for a lot of patients. It gives them their life back. So what we have done is with the CBD molecule, besides the nanotechnology, we encapsulate it in a complex polysaccharide. Now what that does is that it prevents degradation of the CBD by the acid in your stomach. So once the CBD gets out of your stomach and gets into the second part of the duodenum, what happens is the polysaccharide capsule dissolves and there's absorption of the CBD. And what that entails is that a lot more CBD is absorbed than with the conventional CBD processing that takes place. So we don't have actual studies as to what percentage is absorbed, but within half an hour of consuming the CBD products that we have, patients will notice a sense of relaxation and they will notice a difference, because what happens is that it gets absorbed into the blood and it reaches the blood-brain barrier and it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and we have receptors in the brain for CBD as well as THC, and the molecule attaches to those receptors, and we see the effects of that.
So as far as if you could go a little bit more in depth about sort of what actually CBD is and where it comes from in the plant, unless you would like us to jump on that one, because I feel like CBD is thrown out there so often, but people might not understand exactly where it's coming from and how it's actually being extracted from the plant.
I think you should take that first, and then I'll jump in on the
Sure.
utilization.
So to contextualize it a little bit better, our company is based in Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. And there, let's see, this year I believe there's around 1,000 acres of hemp being planted. There's two different ways to plant hemp. You can grow it what we would call an industrial hemp crop. And it looks a little bit more like bamboo than it does marijuana. And you harvested the stalk of the plant for fiber. You can make clothing. If we never criminalized it, I might be wearing a hemp shirt. A lot of people in China do, but unfortunately, back in 2018, it just got legalized. So we have fiber from the plant, and that's the stalk. And then when you get up to the top of the plant, depending on how you're growing it, if you have males and females and they're cross-pollinating, they create seeds. And that's where the protein content is in the actual seed of the plant. The CBD is what's coming off of the flower of the plant. And so it's just a naturally forming chemical, and if I'm understanding it correctly, it was developed in the plant as a deterrent to like plants or other pests. But us crafty humans have developed a bit of a way to utilize it a little bit better. So it's just a naturally occurring chemical within the plant, kind of like capsaicin is in spicy peppers, for example. It's kind of the same concept. Do you want to?
Yeah. Well, we're talking about alternative use for foods, right? So one of the things that, as you notice in Florida, it's not recreational as of yet, but it's for medical use. But what we're finding is there are chefs that are putting together private dinners and things like that, and they're offering a pure hemp menu or a CBD menu, and even in some cases a THC menu. So one of the things that Sadhna and I have been working on is the last 2.5 years, we have developed recipes, from the full scale using just simple hemp hearts, doing extractions with the seed. There was a beautiful picture up here. Someone was talking about turmeric and ginger and lemon, creating beautiful flavors that worked really well, but at the same time creating an essential component as an alternative for the market space. One of the most important things about utilizing, I guess the hemp or the cannabis plant, it has to be prepared properly so it can have some efficacy. So if it's, there's THC and there's THCA, and I don't want to get really technical about the whole thing, but it doesn't necessarily become active unless it has some heat to it. But how you treat THCA in the plant form and how you treat it in CBD form is entirely two different pieces. The extraction is entirely different, and the components are different. So a lot of times when people are trying to make food or products with it, they don't necessarily are getting the true efficacy of it. I'm sure people probably in the audience have maybe tried a gummy bear that's CBD, and they taste this real bitterness. That's one of the components that Wes was talking about. But essentially, those particular components have a lot of essential nutrients that work with the endocannabinoid system. So getting that preparation proper and getting into the system to be utilized is where the chemistry is. There's probably in Colorado, we just got back from California, where there's a lot of CBD and cannabis dispensaries that have drinks. But one of the big issues that people are finding is that no one really wants to drink bong water, right? Or an iced tea that tastes like bong water, or those kind of components. So we've made it our mission the last 2.5, 3 years to focus on those things so we can put a product out that tastes good, smells good, and has the sensation of a true product. We had the young man there try some of our products. That's because we spent a lot of time with the science. But today, there's such a range of products that could be manufactured for the use in the proper manner for wellness. We missed the wellness part because now we're talking about the recreational high. But more importantly is that as a medical professional, I always want to tell people is that just be wary of the certain things. If it doesn't taste good right away or it's overly bitter and all those, it's probably not prepared properly and you're not getting the true efficacy from it. But can you talk about the marijuana plant in terms of cooking with the spices?
Yeah, well, CBD, we have developed a CBD that can withstand about 360 degrees. So we've added it to our line of spices that we have developed, and they can be used for marination as well as, they can be cooked because they can withstand heat. So that's another way of consuming the CBD. And it hasn't hampered the taste of the meal, and we've tried it in several different dishes, and it has worked fantastic.
So you guys have a pretty unique product, if maybe the only product that is essentially a spirit with CBD in it. Could you talk a little bit more about the current, where the legislation stands as far as being able to incorporate CBD with actual alcohol?
So everyone was excited in 2018 when the Farm Bill came out because they thought that the Farm Bill would go a little further with encompassing CBD into alcohol. However, hemp is legal, so you're seeing hemp-infused wine. Someone with the young lady that earlier was talking about hemp-infused wine. And they're doing it with full-blown marijuana. Not legal. It's probably not going to be legal for probably another 30 years with that particular space, because there hasn't been any long-term studies with marijuana and alcohol, right? And it's kind of like, hey, one is getting you upper, one is getting you down, so we have no idea what the long-term effect on the body in terms of the brain, the skeletal system, all the different things that go along with ingesting alcohol. But more importantly, what we do know is if you add CBD to alcohol, right, it does take away that bite that you experience the next day. That's just a fact. But one of the things that the marketplace is going to go to or gravitate to is to create products that are non-alcohol based that would allow you to infuse it with pure hemp, CBD, broad spectrum, full spectrum, and also with full-blown THC. And that's where the market is at standing right now. The unfortunate piece from the FDA portion, because I also run a distillery, and this is key, is that anything that's food-based still has to have a supervision of the FDA, right? Even if you put our non-alcoholic shots, which we designed, you've got to put that disclaimer, it's a dietary supplement, not approved for FDA, all those things. However, what we do know is science has shown that if you mix those things in a non-alcoholic space, there is definitely efficacy. What we've done personally with our company, and it's not a discussion about our company, but what we've done is we've created all our products as dosing mechanisms and provided an alternative using foods and drinks as a way to help the end user. Case in point, if you bought a tincture, all right, and you get into the bar and they would say, okay, we want to make a CBD drink, what they would do is they would take a 15 milligrams of of oil, drop it into the drink, shake it up, break it down with alcohol. But eventually what happens, it all floats back to the top, and you get two things that usually happen. You get a slight bitterness, or you start to get the grassiness of the plant, that earthiness. So what we've done is we've created technology that actually helps dissipate that, and then we created an extraction process that's actually that's right up for 3 patents right now that allows for that. So the most important thing is that providing that product at the end, so when someone picks it up and drink an iced tea or an extension product, it tastes like the real thing, because you could put all of the great things in the bottle, but if it doesn't taste good, no one's gonna enjoy it or have the experience. Now, if you're focusing on the dispensary, they're going there for a reason, either for a recreational high or for something to deal with relieving pain or some kind of medical issue, and that's a different outfit altogether. But in terms of utilizing as an alternative in food and dosing, there's super alternatives out there. Unfortunately, the science hasn't caught up with the palates of the population.
Right. And on top of, and I guess Ethan kind of get you in on this conversation as well. Those who are going to the bar to get a CBD infused drink, for example, what is typically the reasoning behind wanting to go ahead and do that? In our experience in our brand, Ethan, what is the main demographic of the consumers that you're seeing?
Well, it really depends on what you're buying it for. So when I'm selling the stuff, let's take one of our farmers markets, for example. I'd say the majority of our customers are actually elderly people who are taking it for joint pain, sore muscles, that sort of thing. In that case, what they're usually doing is applying it directly to the skin. So that is going to be purely for pain relief. That's not really for anti-anxiety or anything like that. Now, we were just talking about in terms of infusing it into drinks, I'd say that's going to be much more tailored to anxiety, just help relax, mellow you out a little bit. That being said, there is a massive amount of variance in terms of the effects that it has on different people. So just from the conversations that I've had with my customers, I have one person that takes it to fall asleep. That's what most people take it for. Well, if they're taking it to fall asleep. But then I have another person that says it wakes him up. So he takes it in the morning, it energizes him. So it really just depends. But yeah, especially with the bars, that's going to be more for fun. That's just, I mean, it really is. And if I'm being completely honest, it's not the most efficient way to take it, especially with what he was talking about, with just dropping it in there. It's going to float to the top. It's not going to get mixed in, and it's going to get diluted in your stomach. But yeah, I guess that sort of answers the question.
Okay. And with your product that you have, the spirits, are you seeing a trend in on the consumer side of things? We had the conversation about the expo that you went to, the CBD expo. Do you see a trend in companies just like yourselves where creating sort of out-of-the-box products is sort of the future of CBD? Because as you were saying, it seems like there's a pretty clear sort of pattern of the products that are widely available on the market right now.
I think what's happening in the CBD market, but we're focusing on trying to look at foods, but just as a whole, in general, 80% of the products out there are edibles or vapes and things like that. And in the edible markets, it's a hit or miss because the raw materials of CBD or cannabinoids, and now that we're looking at the full spectrum or broad spectrum rather, or an isolate, they're trying to focus on getting those products that have efficacy. But if you took the plant and you stuck it into a gummy bear, a broad spectrum, right? that would give you anywhere from 14 cannabinoids to what, 100? And those levels of flavors are all over the place. So you're gonna get either really bad tasting bitter product or something that is covered with a lot of sugar, and it kind of counteracts what they're trying to do. So that's one thing that's happening. But what we do find is that as a whole, the beverage space is about 5 or 10, not even 10% scratched in the surface, where we estimate it's a $5 billion industry within the next 2 years, $25 billion industry within the next 20 years. And if you start running those numbers in a global space, the way I look at CBD is this, is that eventually it will become part of an ingredient on the back of a can, because it does have that much medicinal benefits. What's gonna take some time is perfecting the science so that it's usable and effective. Because it's not one of those things like ginseng or something, you just throw it into a tea and it's got some effect. It just doesn't work that way. You know, it has to have association with fat, it has to be associated with some kind of heat, and there's a whole bunch of different things that makes it really tricky. And scientists will spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to figure that out. I like to think we're a little bit ahead of what we've done, but at the same time, it's just like anything else, it's just scratching the surface of the next generation of the food and beverage market.
That is an interesting point, actually. Well, in terms of food specifically, and this is just sort of an observation I made. Right now, I think most people treat it almost they treat it like they're taking medicine a lot of the times, unless they're getting like a gummy bear or something like that. But if you're just getting the tincture, you know, you do the oils, you do the under the tongue thing, 30 seconds, hits your bloodstream. I'd say that's how most people are doing it right now. But it will just be interesting to see how it plays out and in terms of, you know, just food and art and yeah.
To get sort of back on track and something that would tailor to more of the like food guys in the audience, all of our superfood companies have pretty much left the building at this point. But even then, I think it would be preaching to the choir. I know Jonathan Netsky with NextVeg, one of his biggest products is a hemp product, hemp meat alternative. And same with Laird Superfood, they have their own hemp products. And so the reasoning behind wanting to actually get hemp, other than it being something that there's a lot of market research about, can you just use hemp on a product? Will that get people to buy it? And that's definitely an aspect of hemp because it's one of those, in the conversation about social media marketing that John just had, he said, how do you capture the attention of millennials nowadays? If you just throw hemp or cannabis, sativa, or anything like that up on an advertisement, it draws people in. It's a little bit edgy, it's something new. So there is that aspect, but as far as us being processors of hemp grains to be able to make the protein. The reason why we do is, for one, I think that, like I was explaining, because you can get CBD, because you can get fiber, and because it's such a widely available source of protein, it just makes sense for farmers. And that's at the core of why everybody's in this room right now, is because farmers are out there doing the work, growing things. So that's obviously a huge benefit, but on a sort of a nutrient level, hemp contains all 9 essential amino acids. Not in crazy amounts, but it's enough for it to be noticeable. It's enough for people to take attention, or formulators should take attention to that. And then also on top of that, it has a crazy good ratio of omega-3s and 6s. In fact, it's the closest thing that you can get to fish oil. And so that's not really found in many things in nature that we consume. So that's another huge benefit of the plant. And on top of that, it's just super digestible as a protein, which I think is definitely super beneficial. So that's kind of like the reasoning behind hemp. It's not just a new a new commodity crop that you'll see popping up here and there that has actual tangible benefits. And again, I think what we're super interested in as a company and how we got into the whole thing was because we already had the fiber industry in our state. And actually a little kind of funny story, something that you guys might enjoy hearing, is the first guy that ever had, also today Virginia legalized marijuana, by the way, so that's super cool.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
But it's also 420. That's amazing. So the first farmer to ever get a hemp growing permit in the state of Virginia, he did it because he did his research, and he actually grew the hemp to harvest for grain in his combines and all of that stuff. And he ended up turning it all into biodiesel to create a closed loop on the farm, so that essentially he's raising the fuel instead of having to go out and buy it. He turns it straight into biodiesel, and it's kind of like a moonshine still, basically, a massive moonshine still in his barn. And so that's really special. But his vision, and he's kind of a mentor to us, is that not only can you do things like make biodiesel out of it, you can also sell it to make clothing and stuff like that. What the fiber side of the industry in Virginia is doing is it's all going to animal bedding, and then it's all going to actually Ford to make car components, which is super cool. So again, it's like there's that side of the industry that was already established. There was already markets for that. But the problem was, in Virginia at least, all of the seed was going to waste. And that's a shame. Like I was saying, all 9 essential amino acids, the omega-3s and 6s, super dense amount of protein in those seeds. It just doesn't make sense to let that go to waste. So that was a big driving force in us getting into the whole thing. So yeah, that's...
Wes, I wanted to mention before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about all things food here in beverage, one of the beautiful things that the CBD plant or cannabinoids or cannabis sativa, it's rich in terpenes, right? So I know we've had a flavor guy here, we had a bunch of chefs, we had a beer guy. Terpenes, if it's utilized properly, could create a massive amount of different flavors. We've got, the same, you can recreate the same smell and taste of lavender, citrus, orange, the earthiness of some of the other plants out there. So if you do the extraction properly, and if it's done in the sativa side versus the indica side, you can get all of the same flavors that you would buy off the shelf. The sad part is that because of the Farm Bill or certain restrictions, those terpenes are being categorized in the under the same Farm Bill as is it a Class 1 drug? Mm-hmm. It's a Class 1 drug. So hopefully the administration and local states would see the broader picture, because I'll tell you, chefs can create a tremendous amount of food, give some medicinal components because of the higher concentration levels. And, Wes was talking about these guys are about to sign a deal or to work with a local brewery over there that are using hops, right? That's basically a bunch of terpenes to enhance it. We use it in our distillery, lavender, lemon, and some of those other things. So now that we're actually getting the extractions from the cannabinoids and from the plants, our cost of goods have come way down almost by 25 to 30%, because you use a little bit more and it goes way more. And that's one of the things that we're super happy about. And I'll tell you, you chefs, once they can figure that out and how to work with it, you'll be able to create beautiful flavors and save a lot of money, because we've been talking about sustainability this whole last 3 days. And just like anything else, if you can cost less, more volume, we're saving money, and then eventually we save the planet. So it's a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else have any other remarks to make? Do we have any questions?
On that note,
Actually, Wes, I had a comment about when you were talking about the CBD, Ethan, it's important that you know where your CBD is coming from. So, you know, in Florida, we have, you know, gas stations selling CBD, and, you know, it's, some of my patients will buy it there, and they'll tell me, oh, I got a headache from it. And I'm like, you should not get a headache from CBD because your body makes it. It's called endocannabinoids. Your body has receptors for that, and your body makes it. And what we get from, be it hemp or marijuana, is called phytocannabinoids because we get it from a plant. So it's something that they mixed with the CBD is causing the headache. So CBD by itself should not cause a headache. Like I said, it's produced in your body. So always ask for a COA or a certificate of analysis, so you know exactly where the plant was grown and everything was hygienically prepared, the CBD. And my advice is to start low and go slow till you get the desired therapeutic effect.
We've even had in our own experience just through doing work, we've met some as you said earlier, some snake oil salesmen.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to be very careful.
That is
advice.
actually very frustrating to us too, because it does, and there are thousands upon thousands of them out there that will just sell you crap. And it just perpetuates the stereotype that all CBD is snake oil, which is not true. But I mean, the amount of customers that I just have to, the amount of convincing it takes just to turn them over to try it, it's insane because of all these companies out here.
There's a question.
I think we have a question.
Yes. Question about the limitation for using it as a food ingredient. You said 360 degrees. Is that, you think that's a ceiling, or do you think that at some point we might get past that? The reason I'm asking is not just, we fry in 375 degree shortening, right? And so not only is it a temperature for us, but it's a violent process to go from room temperature to 375. Obviously we drop something into a pool of that liquid. And so it's not only heat, but it's also the speed at which you're requiring molecular adjustment, right? So a lot of things that can survive baking, because it's a much slower heating process, they can't survive frying, which is why, you know, a lot of the replacement things for sugars don't ever survive in a frying environment. They just can't at the molecular level. Heat is their nemesis, and it's the speed at which you're requiring that change. So is 360 kind of is that going to be the end all be all, or do you think you could push beyond it? And if you can get to 375, do you think it'll survive a rapid increase
in the temperature? So that is something that we will have to talk to the supplier about. And what he recommended is that it can be added to foods, especially when you fry. You can add the powder, the CBD that's in a powdered form, to the food itself. And you know, I'm not sure it's going to alter the taste a little bit, but I'm sure it probably will, because it's on the surface of the food. But I'm hoping that at some point they'll be able to let it withstand more than 360 degrees. So it should be okay with when you drop it into the fryer.
So let me just add to that. So the average CBD degrades around 200 degrees. So the one that we're talking about that was specially developed for our product goes to 360. So, but the average CBD, once it's put into the powder form or in the crystal, because of the extraction, so it's just like anything else, you know, not all alcohol is equal, not all donuts are equal, right? All sugars are equal. It's that extraction process, it's the methodology, how it's actually conformed. I will tell you, our scientists, and they're very good scientists, we're actively working on trying to get it to 400 degrees for two reasons. I mean, for one, frying is important, but then certain temperatures for when you're baking, it has to go, you know, north of 350 and stuff like that. And again, because of the variance of where the plant is grown and how it's extracted, it's very difficult. But what I will tell you, you know, we in 2 years, we were able to go from, our first extraction was around 280, then we got it to 310, And in the last batch we worked at, it was at 358 to be exact, right? So I'm hoping to be where it's a 400 so we can sell it to guys like you. Make a lot of profit.
Any other questions?
Reggie?
Thank you. What is the recommended amount? Like, I'm pretty experimental myself with things. What do you recommend someone consume per day?
Well, to a degree, it's body weight dependent. But to answer that question the best, I'd say I would agree with what you said. Start small and go up from there. So I would say a good starting point would be like 300 milligrams. 500 would probably be better, if I'm being honest with you.
What's that?
500 milligram CBD bottle. And again, this depends on what you're taking it for. Start off with like a 7 milligram dosage. I mean, what would you say? 7 milligrams, do you think that's a good dosage?
No, hold on. So let me, I'll have you chime in, but here's the thing. You've got to get to stacking. So that stacking is, you said 150?
Yeah.
150 milligrams, pick it up from there.
So what I recommend my patients to do is the ones that are very naive to taking CBD, I start them off with 25 milligrams a day, and then every couple of days, if they don't have any side effects, I will have them increase it by 25 milligrams until we get to 150.
And 25 milligrams is one drop?
No, it all depends on what,
The
like,
concentration.
like we
Depends on
sell
the tincture.
3,000 milligrams, which is a super concentrated piece. So one drop, 1 ml is 88 milligrams.
And sorry to interrupt. Is there such thing as overdosing on CBD? And what?
Nobody's ever like died from it or gotten. I mean, if you take too much of it, the worst that would happen is you're just gonna feel very, very, very relaxed.
You might sleep for 2 days, but
And you might have a better.
yeah, you probably from a scientific
I'm sure
point
you
of
have a
view.
better answer to that.
Yeah,
than we do,
so
but-
no one has really overdosed from CBD, and I mean they've taken too much marijuana with the THC, and all they do is they eat, they laugh, and they fall asleep. So, and they drive really slow.
That I have experienced.
So but there's just a clarity, since we're talking about CBD, there's full spectrum, there's broad spectrum, okay, and then there's just plain CBD. Plain CBD is just the isolation of the CBD itself, right? The full spectrum, there is a chance you will get THC in it.
Yep.
Because it's being from the full portion of the plant. Broad spectrum, they make sure that there's no THC in that component. Even with the full spectrum, it's usually about 3% of THC, so it's not really overly aggressive. So you may feel a little more relaxed. You may have a little bit of psychotropic effect, but you've got to figure where you're going with it. So if you're looking for phytocannabinoids for health, you probably want to go with a broad spectrum. If you're looking for a little bit of relaxation with health, then you go with a full spectrum.
Thank you.
But you have to remember that CBD and THC work synergistically, so they work best when they're together. So a little bit of THC is very good for the CBD.
Yeah, it's called the synergizer.
Yes.
Anybody else? I think that's about it.
All righty.
All
That's
right.
a wrap.
Cool. Thank you guys. Thank you for
so
sticking
much.
around till the
Appreciate
end.
it.
Yeah.